Hey guys, what's up? This is the Bushido Cafe, episode number 17, and today it's going to be with my cousin, and I would like to say, even more importantly, my good friend, Constance. And so, gonna hand it off to her to give a little background, and then we'll just see where it goes from there. But she's a very interesting character, and yeah, we'll just take it as it goes. So, Constance, you want
We'll
to give
leave
a
it
little
at that.
background on yourself?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Levi. It's fun to get to see you in your element. I'm Constance. I am this lovely man's cousin, and I am currently in Austin, Texas. I work in marketing. I make hats. I have traveled. I am big commitment phobe, so I like to move around a lot. Uh, and I am a collector of beautiful things. I love to design spaces, and so I am a curator of spaces, and I like to rock climb. That's my intro.
No, no, that's good. It can be, it's kind of funny seeing whenever I say give a background, it's just interesting. Some people interpret that as like, here's my life story. Some is like, here's my interests and hobbies. So yeah, it's all good. Um, Before we got on, we were kind of discussing some stuff about searching for jobs. So I think we can maybe just pick up on that since it's something we both have opinions and ideas on. Um, Specifically, I would say, as people who have kind of taken more unorthodox approaches to life, we were just saying, like, yeah, say you want to do engineering and you want to do that and you go high school and you go to school, university, and you get your engineering degree and you get a job, that's kind of like a logical, coherent steps. And a company is going to look at you and be like, okay, we can follow this timeline. And so getting a job, I won't say it's easy. Obviously, you have to put in the work to do that. But I think the coherence of the process kind of gives you more. I would say, you can be relatively confident that you're going to be able to get a job.
Yeah.
But needless to say, that hasn't been our path. For me, it's been, it was high school, in the military for a few years, got out, traveled around for a few years. Now a few entrepreneurial endeavors, going to school for my MBA. And now that I'm, kind of in a position where I'm about a year out from finishing my MBA, and I'm thinking like, okay, well, I think I'd be a lot more marketable with a year's worth of experience and an MBA, rather than just like, hey, I'm 30, had this like past 10 years of kind of crazy living, and I had my MBA. That is, could be interpreted a lot of different ways. So I'm
Yeah.
been on the job hunt for a few weeks, relatively fruitless.
Yeah.
Actually,
How's it going?
results. But like I was telling Constance before, I consider, or the way I'm looking at it is, job searching is like a skill in and of itself that you have to develop. And so, just like anything, when you start learning a new skill, it can be very frustrating and
Yeah.
it feels like you're not making much progress or that you can really see. So, yeah, Constance, I honestly think that you have a lot more experience than I do in this, both in terms of results and frustrations. So do you want to give some background? Maybe you can kind of run people through like what you went to school for to get your
Yeah.
undergrad, and then kind of like your path to get to where you are now. And I think that'll help the audience contextualize your spot right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I went to school. I went to a really good school, which has turned out to be an incredible gift because I think people don't look at like what you've studied, they look at where you studied, which I hate, but unfortunately it was a privilege of my life. So I got a nearly full ride scholarship to Pepperdine University, and I went there reluctantly. I wanted to go travel the world, and my parents were like, we're not paying for that, you need to take that scholarship and go to school. So I did that, and I was like, cool, I'm going to be in California, I don't want to go to school, what am I going to study? So I double majored. I did what I thought was like practical and did film production and studying like media, things that would be transferable to like what I wanted to do, more film things, but I also studied acting. Which funny enough, neither of those things ended up being where I ended up in life. To put part of my scholarship was building all of the theater sets. And that job actually, so I got out of school. I spent a couple years in LA trying to do the film industry, just doing service industry jobs. And then that was kind of the first transition of like, okay, I'm tired of being broke. I need a real job. And what does this look like? And um, weirdly enough, it was kind of like we had been talking about, specialized skill is a thing that got my foot in the door to I ended up in a job event designing, purely based off of the scholarship I had of all the stuff I had built. And so like fabrications and creating designs. My first like entry into the real like adult job market came from connection, and came from a really specialized skill I had. And from there, like, I think that was a little bit luck of the draw. That was kind of my most luck of the draw professional job. From there, it's been an interesting journey of like trying to move up a career ladder with no base, of without having that like, I went to school for finance and now I'm going to work in finance and now I just climbed the ladder at a company. So it's been interesting in shifting out of that design job, moving into other industries. I ended up in the event industry, which was a transferable skill set. But that was my first transition of job hunting. That was savage. It's savage. You will get like 8 interviews in. If you even get a response from a job at all, then the interview process tends to be exhausting because they have so many options. So I have found my most success has been consistently through people, through connection, and tapping my resources of my community of like, hey guys, I'm looking for a job, and annoying people. That's been like the way I've gotten jobs, is annoying my community opposed to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Indeed applications, or shifting your resume, even like trying to create a specific cover letter and a specific resume. A lot of times that'll get your foot in the door, I've experienced, as you're trying to shift jobs. But the most success I found, yeah, has been through connection. So I moved from events, and when I moved out of events because of the pandemic, I was looking for something more stable and tried to transfer industries into ad agency marketing. And that transition was wild. Like trying to transfer industries, people are like, oh, you've done account management over here, but have you done account management in ad agencies? And you're like, no. And they're like, well, we need account managers who have done ad agency work for 7+ years. And you're like, it's the same thing. It's just a different industry. So yeah, lots of just banging your head against the wall energy, and then lucky moments that seem to bring opportunity through connection.
Yep. That's honestly like, that's something I hadn't even considered. It's like, not only, obviously there's the whole catch-22. I talked with Vanessa about this and you about this, where it's like, everyone knows you need experience to get a job, but you need a job to get experience. That's like the classic catch-22. But now from what you're saying, it's not only do you need experience in that job, but it's like, you need experience in the job in the industry. So it's like that next level. I'm like,
Yeah.
like, are you actually getting applicants for this? Like, are you getting people that have been in the ad, and are they're going to accept what you're paying for this job? Like, I'm like, I don't know. And then it's like you hear people at the job saying like, oh man, we can't find good people. I'm like, well, how is it that, I mean, I think I've got some at least competent skills to offer here. How is it that you guys can't find good people and I can't even get an entry level job? So I don't know what sort of like mix up or like incompatibility that there is here, but
Yeah.
yeah, I like what you, go ahead.
That gets you, I mean, that's exactly the issue, is like now being in corporate America, seeing like the wacky people who are running the companies, because they're the people who have no diversity. They haven't been challenged in life. They haven't taken any crazy turns. It's been like very linear climbing the ladder, but that's all they know how to do. So they don't know how to search for anything else. And those are the people in leadership at these corporations giving out these opportunities for remote jobs. And so it just perpetuates the whole cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, I mean, once again, what we were just talking about offline, it's like trying to balance being a generalist versus a specialist of like, I don't want to be a fucking dork that's like you do one thing. And if the world even changes 1 degree and your skill set becomes obsolete, you're fucked. Like, obviously,
Yes.
you don't want to be that. But also, as someone who's like, I can say I would speak more from a generalist point of view, is like, I can do a lot of things pretty well, but that doesn't matter if they're looking for like this very specific niche thing. And I
Yeah.
mean, I get it. I'm an entrepreneur. Like, if you're looking for someone to do something for your company, like it probably is going to be somewhat specialist, but I don't know, it's hard to balance that of like how much of a generalist do I want to be in terms of being a well-rounded person in life versus
Yeah.
like how much of myself should I dedicate to being a specialist in developing like one skill finely honed to where it's like you might be able to make 100 grand with really not a lot of skills. And
Yeah.
it's like, for me, it's kind of crazy where you see people, it's like you can just look at them and tell that they don't really have their life together. But in this one area in their like job, they've got it like locked in. And they're like, I'm like, you're not like a well-rounded person at all.
Yes.
And yet you're like
Yes.
clearing 6 figures. And like, granted, that money means like nothing because they've sacrificed everything else to get that money and they don't
Yes.
even know how to spend it or like to take care of themselves or the community with that money.
Yeah.
But, like I still would love to be in that position. So, yeah, it's tough. Anyways, kind of what you were saying about networking, the more, like we were saying, that's all about, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And obviously you hear that like growing up, but you don't really internalize that until you get to a point where you feel like you know a lot and yet you can't really turn that into something. And I think that's when you really realize the power of networking. And
Yeah.
speaking from my point of view, it's something that I've never been good at, or let's say not been good at, but like, I don't know, you really have to like put yourself out there and rely on other people and ask people for help, which man,
Yes.
it's hard to do. You have to
It's
like, in terms of like the overall job search, it's really good and because it like humbles you and realize like, man, I can't get a job or it's very difficult to get a job without other people. So it like humbles you and pushes you to ask for help, which is great, but also very challenging.
yeah. Yeah. I think that it bumps me up against all of my internal individualism for sure. And I think that's something that we have in common is the life we've taken has been a lot of beautiful like growth of self and growth of individuality and tapping against our own borders and creating really firm understanding of who we are. But that is like not my strength of tapping my resources. And that's something I feel like as I'm starting my own art business, as I'm making these hats, like I'm tapping my own resources in that. And it feels like worth it because it's my heart, it's my soul, it's my passion. But going like, hey, I need to pay my bills. I'm tapping my resources because I need someone to advocate for me so I can go find a thing that I don't really enjoy but can pay my bills. That feels really hard for me to do, but has literally been the only thing that's been successful in my job.
No, it's true. Like honestly, it's like I would say it's embarrassing, but it's not embarrassing. Like it's humbling. Like
That's
you,
the
I
right
mean,
word.
depending on your viewpoint, you can say those are the same thing, but it's like there's no shame in that. Like we
Yeah.
only, it's like, say, for example, people that are like, there's some really hot girl that gets famous on Instagram. I'm like, and people are like talking shit. I'm like, hey, those are your skills. Like
Yeah.
you're tapping the resources that you have. You're beautiful and you're
Yes.
gonna kill it with using that resource that you have. Awesome. Go for it. I love it. Like you use the resources that you have. So
Oh
like
yeah.
definitely no shame in tapping into the resources that you have. But it is humbling because I think that's American culture of just like just, you go out, you get it done, and that's, I don't know, it is that American individualism, thinking you can just do it all yourself. But the job search, just without any input from others, it's unless you have a specific skill set, of course, that's in demand, then you're good. But yeah, without networking, it's tough. And so that, for me, like you said, it's been humbling. But I think it's so key to really getting your foot in the door.
Yeah. And I think it also just looks like I'm also someone who doesn't love, there's certain things where I'm like, oh, I feel like I want to share this with people and I feel good about that. But I'm not one of those people who's like, here's my whole life.
Mhm.
And so feeling like putting it out there, even like posting on Instagram, like before I got this job that I'm at, like I was posting on Instagram furiously, and it felt a little degrading, a little bit of I after the first post that I posted a second time, or that I posted a third time, or the fourth time. But the fourth time was when someone was like, oh, I have a connection for you. Something popped up. And it's like the resiliency to not change your views of yourself and view of your self-worth by continuing to ask for help, or continuing to put yourself out there and share with people where you're at. It feels like maybe a little bit vulnerable or a little bit humbling, of course, but that fourth time, that's always stuck with me, is the continuation of putting it out there is the thing that actually brought the connection, because it's timing. It's right time, right place.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And it's like, even that has been because that's a resource, but I'm like, oh man, fuck, I don't want to do that. It's very vulnerable. But once again, it's you just have to change your frame. And kind of what I was saying, there's nothing beneath me. I'm well beyond trying to put out this image of me that's XYZ. It's just
Yeah.
and that's also the thing, I think, is getting married. And now that my mom's getting a little bit older, it's okay, well, this is a responsibility that's falling onto me. It's it kind of makes you grow up, and it'd be well, this is nothing, this is beyond you. It doesn't matter about you. This is about providing for my family, and hopefully kids later on down the line of
Yeah.
it's, you just have to, I mean, before I definitely would have been that's beneath me. Come on, I'm not doing that. Whatever job it would have been. But now I'm and it's also just the humbling of the job search of okay, fair enough. I thought I had marketable skills. The market is telling me that's not the case. So it's and that's the thing, is your perception of reality and reality, when those meet up, it's up to you to be an adult and mature and adjust your views. Because if you don't, reality is just going to smash you into tiny pieces, and you're going to be end up a resentful person with nothing to show for it. Or you can just, like me, I'm saying okay, I thought I had marketable skills. The reality of the situation is that is turning out not to be the case. And that's fine. That's fine. All I can do is control my action, be okay, what can I do? How can I remedy this? It's okay, go get some more marketable skills, learn how to job search better, tap my resources. But yeah, I think
Also, I would add to that list, the one other thing I'm learning is learn how to sell yourself. Learn how to say it. Before this job, when I was coming out of the event industry, I was okay, I'm an event stylist, but I'm going to list all the things that are marketable skills to this job. So it's going to be transferable, but they're event stylist. I'm not looking at this person. And I was oh, I need to change my language. They're looking for an account manager. I don't care that I wasn't called an account manager. I'm putting myself as an account manager because that's what I fucking did. And so literally having my language change in order to sell all those marketable skills, because you are fucking marketable. It's the way that you market yourself. And that's what I'm learning has been you're not lying. Maybe you tweak the truth. You tweak the truth so that you are becoming someone who speaks their language, and everything that that you can provide inside of you that will make you kick ass at this job. You're just learning how to present it in a language that they can receive. Also, shout out ChatGPT for being you send the job, uh, everything they're looking for, the description, the title, and you go, here's my resume, make my resume curated to this job.
So
That shit is so powerful. It's like helped me so much start to have conversations with people that I wouldn't have before I started like tweaking my language.
yeah, that's really genius. I mean, I've also been kind of using this tool, getting to know it, but um, I think with AI, it's kind of like the people that we would have been like the first generation that really grew up with the internet in terms of it being like really functional and useful and
Yeah.
having a lot and really being like at our fingertips. And I think in the same way that people that are older than us would have had to kind of adapt to using the internet, it wouldn't have been like a native language, we'll call it that. It wouldn't be like a native language for them. In the
Yeah.
same way, ChatGPT, I think, or AI for us is like something we're going to need to be like, oh, well, obviously it can do that. I just didn't think about using it in that way. So that's
Yes.
like, that's genius. Because yeah, you just, I don't know if back in the day, maybe you could just like have your resume and you just send it out. But
Yeah.
I think now you have to tailor your resume, because especially now with ChatGPT, it means everyone else is going to be doing that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
all it does is just raise the bar. So it's like, how do you even think you're going to have a chance with a generic resume versus now that
No.
everyone's going to be doing this? It's like, yeah, that's just a no brainer. Yeah, for sure. That's a great advice. I'm just making notes here for.
It's such a time consuming shift, and that I think can contribute to the dishearteningness of it. And so chat gpt honestly has been such a help in that, like, I was doing that a lot myself, and of course I go in and edit it and make sure that it's like really curating because it's not perfect, but it saves a lot of that labor, and so that you can make it less like your heart and soul has gone into this. It's not, it's just a fucking resume and send it off, but it is something you're putting intentional time into. So that's helped bridge, I feel like, a little bit of the heartache of like, I spent 8 hours on this fucking cover letter and you didn't even get back to me.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's true. It's true. It's true. Um, well, what else should we talk about?
I'm curious to talk about oh man, well, two things. We could go entrepreneurship because I'm starting down this road and would love to chat that. But also, I'm just moved in with my partner and you're married. And I am learning all about molding your life with someone. And it is a crazy journey.
Yeah. Let's we can get to entrepreneurship. I could talk for hours about that for sure. But yeah, living with your partner is very challenging, but very rewarding as well. I don't know, like for me, I'm like super organized and like
Yes, you
OCD
are.
level almost. So it's like I want everything in a specific place and should be done this way and this thing this way. So I think if you're too sloppy, two slobs, then it doesn't matter. Like two pigs, they don't give a shit. It's just like a pigsty, of course. But um yeah, it's challenging. But it, I think whenever people talk about like, oh, why would you get married? 50% of marriages fail. It's like, well, if you actually lived with someone, you would know why. And you would actually be more like, wow, 50% of marriages work. That's what you should be marveling at, you know? Because it's like, it takes so much patience, and really patience that can only be like springing out of love,
Yeah.
that like, that to me is like, it's no wonder why people can't make marriages or relationships work. Because I mean, assuming you're spending a good amount of time with someone, like
Yeah.
they do things different way, and not just like the things that you would normally think of that they do different ways. They do things in a different way that you wouldn't even think to do a different way.
I know.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, take for example, like doing the dishes. Like when I do the dishes, I turn the hot water on and I leave it running. And
Yes.
that really bothers Vanessa. That's not how she was raised. She was raised, you turn the water and suds up and then turn it off and suds the dishes up. And
Yes.
you know, now after like 2 years together, she stopped telling me how to wash the dishes, you know, and that's just, I'm not going to change the way I wash the dishes. So, you know, she might say to me, like, turn the water off. And I just have to say, okay, I'm not going to, but you know, it's like, pick your battles, you know, pick your battles. I'm not going to die on the hill of how much water I'm using to wash the dishes.
So
So it's,
relatable.
it's really about, um, yeah, knowing what hills you're going to challenge, what hills you just like, okay, I'm just gonna do it their way because it's not even worth it. And then other things you're just like, no, I'm not gonna do it, and they need to flex. So it's give and take. It's a give and
Yeah.
take of like some things I'm gonna flex on for you, some things you need to flex on for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're gonna meet in the middle, but all that has to like come out of love because if
Yeah.
you're not really in love with someone, you're not
Yes.
going to make that sacrifice because it's just too hard. It's too
Right.
hard to do.
And I think so one thing Justin and ran into the last couple of days is like you have to be unwaveringly sure that that person loves you. Because when you get into like conflict, one thing that we just did a shit ton of conflict resolution yesterday, and it was like, oh, both of us coming to the realization like we didn't assume the best. Like when you said that or you did that, like we let our brains go to like this person did that because they don't care about me, when like when we stepped back and we did conflict resolution it was like, do you actually believe that? And it's like, no, I know 100% that you love me infinitely. And you're like, oh man, you have to not only like come out of love like for that person but also come from the assumption like, okay, the way that I'm interpreting this is filtered through the fact that I fucking know they love me. And maybe I should question what my brain is telling me right now.
Yeah, that's actually kind of touches on one of my classes I took for my MBA. It's like working in teams. Like you can't be assuming that what people did was out of malice. And this for me is
Yeah.
just what I have to do to function in the world. Like I
Yeah.
assume incompetence before malice, not on the part of my wife per se, but just in the general world. Like, and that's just the reality is people most of the time aren't doing things to be an asshole. They just
Yeah.
don't really know how to do it well. But it's the same thing for relationship. Like you can't assume that they're doing things out of malice. And in the case of a relationship, it's the complete opposite. You know that they love you. And so you just have to like I call it like you have to like crush them with love. Like if they're being like maybe like short or impatient or like maybe not the most loving in that moment, like
Yeah.
it's not it's not up to me to change their mood. Like all I can do is control my reaction. And so
Yeah.
if you meet them in that same, like
Yeah.
that's when things are like I can already see how things spiral out of control. Because like one person does something and then oh you react in that same and then now you have this vicious cycle going where if you can just like normally they're not going to be like that for a long time. So
Yeah.
if you can just like meet them in that moment with patience and love,
Yeah.
and it's just normally they're going to see that they're not behaving the right way. And it doesn't have to be a sorry. Maybe it'll be a sorry, or maybe it'll just be like they need a little bit of time and you come back and you can tell they're in a different mood.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's exactly right. I one this comes this comes from reality TV, but it's some of the best advice I've ever heard, and it rings in my head till today. They said, don't let relational issues be roommate issues, or don't let roommate issues be relational issues. And I was like, that's so real of like you're in close proximity with someone and that's just bound to create friction. And like if you let that friction also like interweave with your relational, it just expands that friction so much more, when if you can just like segment it off to being like, these are roommate things, and then like, but here's our whole relationship, and these friction in the living and learning how to like cohabitate or coexist with someone, those are separate from like all of this over here. And I think what I'm learning is like, I'm not so good at segmenting it just yet. And so it sometimes seeps over here, and it's like, oh, well, you didn't do this. So then like that's impacting all of this love in the relationship, or not impacting the love, but it feels intertwined, but
Mhm,
it's not.
mhm.
I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, yeah, well, living with someone will definitely challenge you. I think for me, in terms of like, normally, in terms of like the OCD type mentality, it's really like, if
Do you
I,
have a tattoo that says Vanessa?
yeah, I just got that.
So tender.
Um, but yeah, in terms of like OCD, OCP personality, people like, I only need to have things perfectly organized if they're mine. So like,
Mm,
what I've had to do is like, I don't view the whole house as like, it's not my house. It's our,
mm,
we'll just say like, it's our apartment.
yeah.
And so that, in terms of like, you'll even go into the closet, like if you look at my part of the closet, it's like perfect. It's organized, everything is in place. Literally, it's like this. It's like the divider. This side is like everything stacked, boom, boom, organized, everything in the right, clothes thrown in there, like every which way. And like, I'm not gonna change them, you know? And there's no they don't need to change. She's fine. That's fine. She's functioned perfectly well her whole life,
Yeah.
getting to this point, and I don't need to be harassing her to organize her closet, you know. But that's something that I like. I come to my desk. This is my desk. I
Yeah.
don't want anyone putting anything on my desk.
Yeah.
Like I don't want. Sometimes my closet is organized. She'll end up putting a sock or something in there, and I've just got to take it and put it back in her size. You know, I can't leave any extra unoccupied space, or inevitably
Yeah.
something will get migrated from that side over there. So I have, as long as there's one thing there, she won't stack it on top. But if there's empty space, it will get filled. So that's like these little things are like, okay, I can't leave an empty space
Yes.
there because there'll be like some socks or
No empty spaces.
jeans
It's
or
gonna get filled.
some random change is gonna, that's not where it goes. So I think for people that are like me that organize, you have to like segment that off as like, this is my side of the closet and I need it organized. This is my office and I need it organized. But the other places, like that's not mine. And you know, like I'm not gonna organize it, you know.
That's that's a cool way. It's like changing your mindset and
Yeah,
like
I have
controlling
to
your piece of it.
because it's like it's such an overwhelming what's the word, like
Compulsion?
it's like what's the word, like impulse. It's such an overwhelming impulse for me that I need my spaces organized, that if I were to really consider it, my space, uh like I would drive them crazy. Like it's not even fair to me. It's
Totally.
not even fair to them for me to expect them to organize things to the degree that I do, because it's like
Yeah.
that's just, there's no way you would do that if you weren't obsessive compulsive. Like that's not even normal. Like the only reason I do it is because I have to do it almost to the degree of like I enjoy it, of like nothing feels so good as having it like organized.
Organized.
And
Wow.
I can't expect that of other people, you know. So or my wife. So it's like, that's her space. Let her do with it what she wants with her space. This is
Yeah.
my space. And then, you know, kind of the harder one is more like a communal space.
Yes.
Which is where it's like, um, I don't know. I just take more ownership of it though. Like if the dishes are dirty and I want them cleaned, just do them. Like it's 5 minutes, you know. What is
Oh,
it? Does it really matter if I do the dishes every day? Like who's keeping score, you know? Like I would say that I probably end up doing the dishes more,
yeah.
and that's fine. That's just because I don't like having dirty dishes in the sink. For her, she would probably be more likely to leave dishes in the sink more, and that's fine, you know.
Yeah.
I'll do the dishes. It's fine. Like it's all good.
Yeah.
It's 5 minutes. It keeps the area nice and clean. She appreciates it as well, you know, keeping things organized. So it's also just like me just like just taking responsibility. It's our space, clean it. Okay, maybe if I make dinner, she does the dishes. Okay, and that's fine, and I appreciate it. But if you, it doesn't need to be this like, oh, 50-50, we're keeping score, this and that. It's like, no, this is our house. I want to
Yeah.
take care of it and keep it nice. And so if I do the dishes more often because I prefer it that way, that's fine. But don't do it resentfully, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's well said. That's well
yeah,
said.
yeah.
I think it's the finding ways to show up for your partner or show that love for your partner in a way that is meaningful to them, and then also is like what you have to give, like this is what I have to offer, and not keeping score, like all of those things. They sound so simple, but I've been so individual my whole life. I'm just like every day I'm like, okay, I'm putting this into practice.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think it's in both ends of like, if you're a person that has lived with people your whole life and you're like codependent, probably going off and being on your own and developing your individual self would be very healthy. Whereas like for you and me, who, I spent a good almost 10 years just
Yeah.
doing my own thing, living alone,
Yeah.
doing whatever. Then to come into a place and learning to flex and, be living with someone, that is the challenge. So
Yeah.
if you really want to grow as a human and be developed and have both capacities, that's what you would, I think, would aspire to as a human. You want to be both not needing anyone and, but not also not needing to live alone,
Yeah.
but just in whatever circumstance you find yourself to be able to live fully into that.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
But I think it's also, like Vanessa and I, we got married after we got back together. We dated before we got back together, just for people's context. Like we got married, I think 3 months after that. So it's
Yes.
whenever you're like, you already made that commitment, it's also like, obviously there's that negative side where people take them for granted and they think they can just do whatever they want. It's like, oh, well, we're married now, like I'll let myself go. But
Yeah.
there is a certain degree of it. It's like, no matter what happens, even if we would fight, we don't really fight, but even if we were to have a conflict or this and that or something, like at the end of the day, like we'll always work it out. And there's no question of that. So it's cool once you've kind of taken that next level of commitment, that you can just kind of count on that, of like, you don't have to
Like
be
no one's
worried.
leaving.
Yeah, you don't have to be worried that that's going to
Yeah.
happen. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, divorce happens. That's just the reality of life. But um, I think if you're in that like a true marriage where you love them so much and you want to make it work and you'll do anything to make it work, like
Yeah.
it does kind of take out some of that stress of like, oh man, if I don't do this, like they're gonna this XYZ. I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
with Vanessa, it's like, it's fine.
The person's there.
Yeah, no matter what happens out there. I mean, even we were talking about in terms of the job search, like no matter what happens in terms of the job search, what I have to do
Yeah.
to make it work, like she'll always be there and always be there to support me. And that's a really good feeling.
Yeah. That's a new one for me, where as I've been transitioning, like this is my first transition as I'm looking at moving out of this job, transitioning to something else, but still question marks. As I've been making the decision that, like, oh, this actually isn't my priority to be making money, but selling my soul to do it. This person's been witnessing, like, this is sucking the life out of you. I just want to reflect back to you, like, this is sucking the life out of you. And I see that. And like having someone who is supporting me like throughout the transition, and who, like, normally all of this just rattles around in my head, and I just, maybe I have a friend that I talk to about it, but like you're ultimately making the decision alone. And it feels like it's the first time I have like all these huge decisions that imply a lot about your life, and someone on the other side who may or may not be impacted by those decisions, but who's like, I'm down for you. I'm down for you, and whatever you need to do, I got you, and I'm in your corner. That has been like, what?
Mhm.
Oh, it's a weird thing, but also has been like I mean, I know both you and I have an interesting journey with family, but it's like, I hope that one day if I have a family, like I get to create that environment so that like my kids never feel alone, that my kids feel like they have that built in. But for people who maybe don't experience that in like their family of origin, experiencing that through a partner has been like life changing for me.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. And I 100% agree. I mean, my aspiration for with my kids is like it's that. It's basically just be like, hey, I'm here to like assist you in achieving your dreams, and you
Yeah.
never have to worry about like there's never going to be a point at which your back is against the wall because you'll always
Yeah.
have me by your side and in your corner. Like you can always come home. It's also, I
Yeah.
don't know, it's different because in Latino culture, like that whole like you're 18 years old, you got to go out and get on
Yeah.
with life. I mean, granted, it's also a little bit weird when they're like 30 some and like still haven't moved out. So there's like that other side of it, which is like a
Yeah.
little weird. So
Yeah.
I would love to think that like between like my American culture and Vanessa's like
Yeah.
culture, we can kind of like merge those and be like, hey, you're 20, you're 21, it's fine. Like, don't
Yeah.
worry, you're finding your way. And then maybe it's
Yeah.
like, hey, you're 29, you're 30. Let's think about maybe you can, leave the nest and okay, let's get things rolling here.
Yeah.
I think
But
it's
both of you are so like you're so strong, not individual in the like I do it all by myself kind of individual, but you're such yourself. You're so individual in who you are. Like the kids that you're going to raise are going to have I didn't I hope to raise kids that want to leave and go do things, but who always want to come back because they're excited about their own life, that they're not like, oh, life is happening right here. I hope they're like, life is happening all out there, that like they see the wonder and the expanse of the universe and they want to go explore it. And they have this like internalized excitement. And you guys are going to raise those kids because both of you are that way,
mhm.
even
Yeah,
from
no,
different cultures.
I think that's so well said. But it's cool whenever you bless them and knowing that like they can take any risk and knowing that they'll have a
Yeah.
place to stay. Uh, that's what enables you to really like go out into the world without fear, knowing like they could
Yeah.
lose it all and they'll always be a family that will be happy to see them. Um,
Yeah.
and even just in terms of like this is a separate thought, but it's really cool of like kind of having come from well, I would say a broken home, whatever, like no one's like home situation and child growing up was perfect, but like things that we would want to change now that I'm going to be raising a family, it's like you can just raise these kids up without any of the baggage, like with none
Yeah.
of the baggage, you can just like cut off all that generational stuff like in one generation and I can raise them up to be like so much better than I am,
Yeah.
and that is will be healing in and of itself because it's like you get to a certain age you're like I don't like whatever happened, whatever, like it's fine. I'm over
Yeah.
it. I'm at the point what now where I need to start my own family and I can just bless these kids, and that's the like the imagery of the phoenix, the symbolism of the phoenix, like I will die but like
Yeah.
out of my ashes will emerge a form that is even better. Like I want to raise these kids that are just like loved and confident and
Yeah.
disciplined and want to chase their dreams. They're
Yes.
like they have emotional intelligence and know that they can conquer anything. And through that will be my own healing. And for Vanessa as well, it's like
Yeah.
we will heal by making some beings that are hopefully leaps and bounds better than us in every way.
That's beautiful. Oh, I mean, that's the only way I think like this is my woo-woo side, but I think that's the only way the world heals is like our willingness. I mean, I'm not there yet. Listen, I'm not trying to pound out any babies just yet, but I think that it's like people deciding that like they don't have to recreate what they had and that they are making active decisions with their life to do it differently. But then to go out, experience the world, to experiment with their own life and go, now I'm going to invest all of this work I've done inside to build a self that I'm excited about, despite everything that's behind me. And now I'm going to like breathe that into another life and like not make them an image of me, not make them like the spitting existence of myself in a younger version, but to go, I'm going to take the canvas and whatever comes out because they're going to be their own human, but I'm going to breathe those things that I needed and that I experimented with my own self and building inside of me, and then breathing that into like that is healing. And like that is how our world moves forward. And that's how we're going to continue to like, I think, evolve as a species to like either fail or to succeed as a species.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think it's interesting because people sometimes, when they're single, they might think like they think of having a child as in isolation of like, will I have kids? But for me, it's like if I was with someone else, maybe I wouldn't have kids. Like
Mm.
the desire to
Mm.
have kids is linked to my partner. And also that was part of my choice in who I wanted to like wanted to marry. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm gonna marry for love. Like, well, it's not just about that. Love is great, but
Yeah.
I'm like long-term mindset, like I
Yeah.
want to raise a family and I want to marry someone that's going to be a great mother to my kids. So like being with someone who I know is going to be an amazing mother
Yeah.
inspires me to have kids, where it's like
Yeah.
it's if I was with someone who I didn't get along with, I was like having kids probably wouldn't be that appealing,
Yeah.
whereas thinking of having kids with Vanessa is like, wow, this is going to be amazing. It's going to bring us together. And I think the kids are going to bring out like the best in us. She's going to see sides of me that she would have never seen before if it was just us.
Yeah.
Likewise, of like, I feel like seeing how she will love and raise our kids is going to make me fall in love with her even more.
Yeah.
So that's something I think people don't take into account of just like having kids isn't just having kids, this idea in isolation. This is like a team effort.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Vanessa is a mom.
Yeah, she's going to be epic. She's going to be epic.
You as a dad is going to be so tender. Like, I can't wait to see that. But also, I just feel like Vanessa's going to be like the most natural mother in the whole entire world. And I can't wait.
I agree 100%. All right. Well, that is some good relationship stuff. Do you want to move on to entrepreneurship, which, is something that I am always happy to chat about. Definitely not anything I really got into until maybe, I don't know, I feel like it was maybe, I remember when I was traveling in Mexico and I met some guy and he was an entrepreneur and said about running a business. And that was like the first time where I ever had really like a spark of like, oh wow, like I could open my own business. But it's so funny because when you grow up, no one's ever like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And you say entrepreneur, it's like these like normal jobs. So that's
Yeah.
like for me and like my personality and interest, like an entrepreneur that's like for sure what I would want to find success with in my life. Your first entrepreneurial endeavor usually ends up being a great way to invest a ton of money and time with not much tangible to show for it. Usually you learn a lot, which is great, but yeah, entrepreneurship is amazing. This is, I would say, a relatively newer interest, or have you been interested in this for a while and you're just kind of now taking action on it?
Yeah. Probably for maybe 3 years ago, the thing that is interesting about me is I don't give a shit about money. Like, I have a friend in my life, and she is like, money is attracted to her. She is attracted to money, and like, she likes the finer things in life. And da-da. And I'm like, I like dirt, I like grass, I like some open spaces. I want to create art, and like, that's my energy. So I feel like entrepreneurship hasn't like appealed to me of like, oh, I'm gonna have to pour my heart and soul into this thing. And maybe I'll make like, I don't know, making money is like not a super good motivator for me. However, um, in the last 3 years, I've had this dream of like starting this hat business, and it's the art of it and the passion of it that I love. And I had a friend who's big entrepreneur, and he was like, I want you to put like a business plan down for me. And he made me write out this whole business plan. So 3 years ago, I put it all down on paper, and I like saw it for the first time and was like, I'm fucking stoked about this. Like, this lights me up. The fact that like I could take nothing and then make it something is so exciting to me. And the fact that I just don't know how to get from nothing to something is that's the piece I don't know, but you can figure that out. And so I think in the last 3 years, it's been like figuring out the baby steps of where do I start? And so I'm just in the starting pieces of like developing the first part of this kind of business plan. But yeah, I'm in the baby portion of it, but I'm opening my mind to like, oh, business, that could be cool.
No, it's like, I always make so many analogies to jujitsu, but it's like when you first go and it either catches you or it doesn't. Like,
Yeah.
you either are like fascinated by it or not. You know, it's just the way it is. Some people it suits them, others not. And you know, from that time, it's like a whole journey of like thinking and learning and mistakes and this and that. And that's really, it's just it's like map time. It's how much time you spend doing it that really helps you get to the next level. And I think entrepreneurship is the same way. It's literally been like from that first spark to now, you know, even though I don't have a business that I can point to and say like, oh, I've got this much. Well, I do,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
know, not something like that's you would write home about, you know. But just by doing it, you're just learning. You're just learning. You don't even necessarily realize it. Like in the day to day, going to jujitsu, you can't perceive your own development. You know, you're just
Yeah.
the sun moves across the sky. If you look at it directly, you're like, no, it's not moving. Only then you look down and it's like hours later, you're like, oh shit, it did move. And it's
Yeah.
in the same way of like, if I think back to, let's say 1 year ago, I've learned so much. And I think that's the thing is like, of course, there's some people that, you know, maybe they find success in their first entrepreneurial endeavor. But I think, I mean, I would be overwhelmingly sure that most people will start, whether it's an official business or some type, anything where you're really like going out on your own. I don't think to be an entrepreneur, it means like, oh, you have a business and you have employees and you have revenue and this and that. All entrepreneur,
I
it's just a
love that.
mindset of saying like, I'm going to branch out. I'm going to be living life on my own terms. And I think once you just, it's really just about starting down this path, and you're just challenged so much more to, you're just confronted with reality more. When you work for someone, it's just, you know, the paycheck's coming in, you know, you have to like show up and get the minimum done. And we all know
Yeah.
people like that at the job, and they're safe, they're comfortable, and that's fine, you know. And for anyone who does that and that works for them, awesome. But for those of us that, you know, are really compelled to want to make something of our own, or, you know, live life on our own terms in whatever way, shape, or form that is, entrepreneurship is like,
Yeah.
it's this whole path. And it's crazy now that I'm I've just attracted it, you know. Now so many of my, like, I went from, if someone had asked me 5 years ago, like, who are your friends or entrepreneurs, I don't think I would have even been able to name anyone. Whereas now
Mm,
it's like, oh, like this person, this person, this person, this person, this person.
cool.
It's crazy how much you bring that into your life without realizing it. So yeah, entrepreneurship, it's like, it's a path, it's a skill, it's a mindset. Um, and yeah, but just like anything, it takes time to, I mean, because you're competing with other people. That's what it is. You're competing. It's a competition. Like, you're competing in the free market in business, and it's cutthroat, you know. So what makes us think that you just show up to your first class of jujitsu, you're not going to be like kicking ass? of the people that have been doing it for years and years. You gotta, you gotta not pay your dues in the traditional bullshit sense of just putting in time, but you have to pay your dues of like really getting in there, making
Yeah.
mistakes, losing money, learning,
Yeah.
pay your dues, cut your teeth, and like learn the ropes. And then eventually, after a few attempts, it's like, okay, I think I have this idea that is plausible and is really going to
Yeah.
fit me for what I want.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the piece that I'm in the foundations of is like the job I have right now, I took so I could fund the beginning stages of this dream. And it's interesting how like I've been focused in this job for, this past year, slowly putting money towards this job. And 2 years ago, when I was traveling for the year, I had made like this cheesy and made this vision board. And on the vision board was like, I want to find a teacher and I want to like get all of the beginning equipment I need to begin this business. But it's like a 20K investment just for like the basic pieces. And I was like, I don't have that money. I haven't been able to get like a business grant. I don't want to go into debt to do it. Like how, and so like I've spent this last year doing this job and just slowly funneling, and it feels like you're not getting anywhere. And it was cool the other day to like walk into my like office space that has like my workshop and go like, oh, like 2 years ago, I didn't even know like how I would get here. And it feels exactly like the like looking at the sun and it's not moving. But then you look up and you're like, holy shit, like I'm in my workshop. And like, oh, I've started a TikTok and people are starting to like follow me and want to like buy my hats. And it's weird, like it's not grandiose, like what I've built so far. It's just like the seedlings, but it's interesting how like it's hard for me because it's something I'm passionate about, that I'm like, oh, it's not what I'm envisioning. And so these steps are not like worthy of significance. But when I look at them, I'm like, holy shit, look what I've accomplished in this year. Like I didn't even know where I would get the money from. And then I got found a job and I've funneled all this. I've managed to do my life and without anybody else's funding, build the beginning stages of this business by myself. And that's cool to just to step back and be like, okay, it's like baby steps, but it makes me get excited about like the future steps.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's rocking. For me, the thing is like, so I had money and I put it into the business, and then it's like going okay,
Yeah.
enough. But I'm at the point now where I'm like, I've got some ideas, but I need money to fund it. So I'm like, and then you're in the situation where you're like, fuck, I want to be an entrepreneur, but now I have to
Yeah.
go back and get a normal job so I can like fund it.
Fund.
But just
Yes.
to get a normal job takes so much.
Yes.
You're like, I have to put in all this energy just to get a job. I don't even like that. Like is like.
Yes. Yes.
So, but yeah, it's like it's so much about your mindset. I think if you go into something thinking it's going to be easy, you're going to get like slapped the wake the fuck up. Like, oh, this is not easy. But
We call
then
it in I have this saying that stuck with me from childhood in judo. When they like throw you and you immediately win the match, they call it ippon. And so our family, they're
gotta
like,
get
we got
pwned.
ipponed.
You
Yeah.
got pwned.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It just feels like the right word for that situation.
yeah, yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I'm at the point now where I'm literally like every day is a battle. That's literally like what I get up saying. It's like every day is a battle. Like you got to go in this like this is serious. Like this is dead serious. Obviously I'm not like miserable. Like
That's intense.
but yeah, no, it is intense. But that's the intensity it takes. Like you can't just. I'm not going into this job search like, oh, I'm just gonna apply for a few things and something's gonna work out. No, like I'm coming in like, let's fucking go. I
Let's,
gotta get this shit done. Like this is
yeah,
a battle. Or like trying to get my visas done. Like literally, that is a fucking battle.
yeah,
Imagine I have to get a visa just to stay in Colombia, And then we have to get a visa to go into the US. Like, we can't even be like, we would have to be going to a different country just to live together. So that's why for me, it's like every day is a battle. It's a battle just to be here in this country. It's a battle for work, for school, for like, I mean, jujitsu obviously is literally a fucking battle. It's like every day is a battle. Like that is, I mean, it is intense, but I think that's what it takes. Like, at least for me, like,
Yeah.
because if I go in thinking it's going to be like chill, it's
Yeah.
just, it's that expectation to reality adjustment is too much versus like if I wake up come ready for battle and it becomes it's not quite, it's a little bit easier, well then I'm pleasantly surprised. But if I wake up thinking like, oh yeah, it's gonna be fine, then it's not fucking fine. You're like, oh my God, it's
Yeah.
so I just go in thinking it's a fucking battle. Like
Yeah.
everything is a battle. Like if I go into the visa office and everything goes smoothly, well, praise the Lord. But I'm not expecting that. I'm
Yeah.
expecting every single thing that could go wrong. You need to go wrong. You bring all the documents, you bring everything, you bring extra documents, you bring copies of the extra documents that you don't even know if they're going to ask for, but you better have them because you might not be able to schedule another appointment. So you got to be on your P's and Q's. You got to be on your P's and Q's.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That sounds like a nightmare.
It is. It's a nightmare if you think it's going to be easy. But if you're ready, or if you're ready to go to war, then it's to be
Yes.
expected.
Yeah.
I go in thinking this person is out to get me. You go in literally thinking you got to go in knowing that you're going to get the biggest asshole in there on his worst day. If you get a nice person and they help you out without any issues, well, awesome. But you got to go in ready for the worst asshole on his worst day. That's what you got to be ready for.
Oh my God.
Battle, man.
Wow. That is a real energy to wake up with. I mean, you're going to get some shit done. That's all I know. I don't know that that mindset is for me, but I know you're going to get some shit done in this lifetime if you're approaching your life that way.
I mean, maybe I won't have to have this mentality. I would love to be in a situation in like 10 years where I can
Yeah.
just be like, okay, I've got a solid job, the businesses are
Yes.
going, the kids are taken care of, I've got the house, and then I can maybe just like come off the pedal for a little bit. But
Yeah.
as of now, like that's not my season. Like if you're living in a place where they will deport you if you don't get the documents done, like you have to be like, you have to have the let's fucking go mentality because
Yeah.
like I don't live in my mom's basement. Like that would be awesome. But that's not even an option. I can't even. So it's like if you choose to live an unorthodox life, just like we have, like, yeah, if you had gone to school and had the normal job, for sure, you don't need to, it's not a battle for you. You're good.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
did the things to set yourself up to where it's smooth. And that's awesome. But I've chosen a different life path that's not the case. And so
Yeah.
I've got a season now where I've got to go to battle. I've got to get in there and prove myself and get myself to the point where maybe I can be a little bit more relaxed. But as
Yeah.
of now, it's just not the situation.
I'm impressed and I'm proud. And you are one of the few people I think that can maintain that. I'm like, I wouldn't be able to maintain that shit, but like you've chosen a life that I think is true to you and you have the capacity to live it. Like you have the skill sets and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's, do you perform better under pressure or worse?
I think it depends on the type of pressure. I'm definitely like at my job, I'm a big perfectionist and there's a lot of pressure at my job for kind of no reason, but I am very good at my job. I just don't feel well. Like my body does not respond well to be in like high cortisol environments for long extended periods of time. Like my body literally gets sick. It's like, no, we don't do this. We're not built for this environment. So I personally don't like to put myself in those scenarios because my body doesn't, like I don't feel well. But my perfectionist side, like it rises to the occasion. But then as soon as like there's maybe a lull or like a break or a breather, I crumble. So it's interesting because like I don't think I could maintain that. But I mean, that's just it. It's just different life circumstances. For me, it's like because I'm not married, because I don't have an immediacy of like wanting a family, that isn't like necessarily in my soul at the moment. And like, yes, I want to create the business, but that's the biggest thing that's calling me financially. So I'm in a season of kind of like de-escalation of like, how can I and also like I think my passion and like move into the world, like how I want to move into the world is like as an artist. And like to create those things, you have to have like space. You can't like be giving your life force to other things or else it steals from, even though I have that workshop, when I finish a 17-hour day, like I went to battle for 17 hours and I have nothing left for my art. And so I think I'm learning like actually maybe a little bit of the opposite of like, how can I create a system of ease so that I can move my life force energy into the things that like want to come through me and out of me. But I think like the I'm going to battle energy, like my partner Justin, like I think he's more like that. Like his life circumstances have been a motherfucking battle. And like you have to come with that fucking energy and you have to show up he hasn't been giving shit in his life. And he has to show up for every opportunity with like 150% and like and I revel at that. But it's so interesting just how people's lives like present them opportunities that you have to rise in a certain way. And I'm thankful that that is not my call.
Mhm. Yeah, I think like, okay, so I had 2 points. One is like, obviously you'd be surprised at what you can sustain if you're, I wouldn't say have to,
Mm,
obviously, like, do I have to be here? No. Like, I could go out to the US, but I'm really would not be inclined to do that. I want to stay here, live with my wife, obviously. So,
yeah.
like, when I say have to, I mean like within the parameters of these things that, okay, yeah, there's still a choice, but let's just say have to. It's like whenever you have to, I don't know, it's kind of like it's the same as like when it taps into that entrepreneurship mentality of like whenever you know that there's not a paycheck coming in unless you figure the shit out, like that's the
Yeah.
entrepreneurship that like clicks into like that whole other level. It's kind of like the same thing of like, I'm like, I also would be maybe skeptical of like if I could sustain this. But it's like,
What?
if you have to, it's just like I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. But
I'll
no, what's beautiful in that is I think the piece that you're saying is you don't have to. Like you could make another choice. But the thing is that like you have done, I think, the hardest piece that people really are terrible at. You have identified the thing that you want. You have identified the thing that you truly want at like when you get that feeling of like, this is a full body fuck yes. Like, this is your full body fuck yes. And that's where I think is maybe where you're saying like the motivation comes from is it's like you could make another choice. You could make an easier choice. You and Vanessa could live in different places. Like but you're doing the thing that you have to do to chase the full body fuck yes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. What was I gonna say? What's the other thing?
I'm sorry I derailed you.
No, that was good. A good point you made. Man, that was a good point. What were we saying? When you have to. Um,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
no, you're good. I didn't even have it in my head. I lost it, and then it came back when you're talking, and then I got into what you're saying. I lost it again.
Oh
Um,
shit. I'm like, what
um,
was I saying before?
sustainable is sustainable. Um, yeah, it's just like, and also like, hey, if it gets to that point, okay, like I go back to the US, I throw some Amazon boxes around for a couple months. Like that is the human story. Like,
Yeah.
not, you don't always get to do what you want. Sometimes I love this quote from Gladiator. He asked like his one like guy, his support guy or whatever, he's like asked him something, and he's like, sometimes I do what I want to, The rest of the time, I do what I have to,
Mm,
and that's like
mhm.
really at the core of it. Like, I'm going to do everything I can to make this work and,
Yeah,
stay with my wife. But hey, if it gets to that point, like, you do what you have to. Like, if
yeah,
I have to come home and work something out for a couple months and we have to be apart, like, guess what? That's a lot of people's reality is, that's just the reality. And sometimes that happens. I think the hardest thing is knowing that, like, it didn't have to be this way. And
yeah,
that's kind of like the definition of tragedy, is like knowing that this is because the way it is because I couldn't put these pieces together. But that's just life. You just do what you can. And I mean, we'll make it work. But obviously it would be great, like, find some remote work. I like my routine here, I can keep this
yeah.
going. But you know, fuck, man. Oh, this is what I was gonna say. This is my point I was gonna say.
Who's back?
So I think it's kind of like the idea of like convergent or divergent thinking. So this I got from a Huberman episode. Is like, when you smoke weed, you have more I think divergent thinking. So you're gonna have things that are like completely unrelated, and you might make like more creative ideas, connecting like ideas that are far apart. And
Mm,
I don't think I'm in a phase of my life, part of the reason why I stopped smoking weed, like, I don't really need to be having creative ideas. I already know my path. So,
mm,
like, if you're not sure your path, I think it's like, yeah, maybe you do need to like take a step back and be like, okay, should I be going there? Maybe this, da, 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 da. Like, you
yeah,
are kind of like, your head is more like up and you're scouting the horizon of like seeing where to go. Whereas
yeah,
I'm like more, a little bit more head down of like, okay, I know what I need to do, just fucking do it. And I think
yeah,
that's kind of more like to implement like the let's fucking go battle mentality, is like when you know what needs to get done and you don't need to be questioning it. Like it's like the visa, like, there's no, I know I need to get it done.
yeah,
So like, you just knuckle down and you do what you have to. Like, if I have to go to the migration office every fucking day, I'll go there every fucking day. If you're thinking it's going to be easy and you only have to go there once, and you have to go there more than once, that's frustrating. But if you
yeah,
once you change your mindset and say, okay, I'll show up here every day. I'll show up here until you guys know my name and you know my own literal individual fucking situation, which is pretty much the point it got to. Like, I knew the lady's name that worked there, and she was like, oh yeah, just let him go ahead. Like, she knows like your situation.
oh,
So it's like,
wow,
that's what it takes. And so that's what I think is the difference. I think like you're maybe in more of a stage where it's like, okay, a little more creative. How am I going to make this entrepreneurship?
yeah,
You already have your job. And so,
yeah,
like, how do I balance this? Whereas, like,
yeah,
for me, I have these things. It's like, okay, got to finish my MBA, got to get a job, make my business work, train jujitsu. Like, I already know these things that I have to do to find
yeah,
success in my life. And so that's when I think you can implement more of this heads down, like,
yeah,
and it's also like, I've spent so much of my life like questioning, and it's like questioning yourself obviously is good. You don't want to, I always say, like, you don't want to climb the wrong mountain and spend all the time getting there only to look across and be like, oh shit, I wanted to climb that mountain.
yeah,
But also, like, stopping to question whether you're climbing the right mountain every step, it slows you down. So
yeah,
like, there's certain things, like, for example, like my MBA, that's like, it's like, I'm not going to question myself. I'm not going to not do it. It's like, that's a non-negotiable. Like, I will get that done no matter what. Jiu-jitsu, same thing. It's like, I don't care what is happening in my life. Like, I will be there 7 a.m. Monday through Friday. That's non-negotiable. So
yeah,
like, for me, having those non-negotiables is really what like frees up my mind to be like, okay, I don't need to question if I'm going to jujitsu today, because that's just it's choice fatigue. It's just another choice I have to make. Whereas it's like, if that's automatic, it's just like, boom, I'm up out of bed, I'm going. That
yeah,
there's no
yeah,
question about it. Like the MBA, like, there's no question about it. I'm gonna get it done. And so I think that by setting some things aside as like non-negotiable, that's
yeah,
kind of like the more battle, this things I know I need to do. And whereas
yeah,
the more ambiguity you have, then you need to be kind of implementing more creativity, because otherwise you just might be like, in the military, we called it like all thrust, no vector, which
okay,
basically means like super hardcore, but like you might be going in the wrong direction. So like, you need to first your vector, make sure your direction is correct. But once you do that, then
Yeah.
that's the time to like, yo, turn it on, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's well
that's
said.
my thoughts on those two differing mentalities.
Yeah. Yeah. That's well said. Maybe a season for both, season for all of it.
Absolutely. And I speak that coming from, a good portion of the last 10 years, finding my way, doing the wrong things, going backwards, forwards, all the things, tracing my dreams, getting them, realizing it's not quite fulfilling, or maybe it was fulfilling for that season, and then moving
Yeah.
on, just doing all those things. But for me, at least now I'm in the season where it's like, okay, this is my direction. Um,
Yeah.
just go for it.
Just go. Yeah. I love that. Well,
For overthinkers, which I would definitely consider myself someone as an overthinker.
I to touch on the climbing the wrong mountain thing, I just had an interview yesterday where it's like at this job I had to fight that I'm in right now. I had 9 interviews and then like got the job, and it's like an entry level account manager job. And then because of my previous background and what I used to do, it was a job that doesn't exist yet. Someone who's starting a business who knew me from what I used to do in event design and the business I launched 2 businesses for different companies and ran them for them in that industry. And they were like, "Hey, we're doing that again. Like, we know you did this over here. Can we hire you?" And it was so interesting to go like, not that I was climbing the wrong mountain all those years, but just like it's just be aware of the mountains you are climbing, because the opportunities that come down the line may come because of those mountains you climbed. But if you didn't really want to be climbing those mountains, they're only going to lead you back to those mountains again. And so I'm definitely in an interesting season of seeing like, really think about the mountains you want to climb. That's a good mantra.
No, it's so well put. And that's like, I don't know, this is an analogy that's literally been in my mind for like years. It's like something I thought about. Because even
That's
take
a
an
good
example,
one.
like I was in special operations for the Air Force. That's like a job. It's like most guys don't make it, had to literally go through
Yeah.
like 2+ years of training just to get there and be like, this is like not a good fit. But
Yeah.
also, it's like you wouldn't even know that unless you get there. So it's
Yeah.
like you can't know if it's the right mountain unless you get to the summit. And also, the skills you develop along the way climbing are transferable and help you get. So it's like, it's so much to balance. But definitely, I would say to people like balance that, climb the mountain with force and gusto, but also like make sure you're taking steps, like moments along the way to like either smell the roses or
Yeah.
just to be like, okay, is this the right mountain? Because maybe if I already know that it's not, and if I can really be honest with myself, I can
Yeah.
like kind of already start for a different mountain.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, you don't always know until you're like at the top anyways. But I think so many people, and this is the scary thing, is like that could be your whole life. You could be like focused on climbing a mountain your whole life and be like 60 and be like, "Ooh, I made a lot of money and my kids hate me because I spent no time
Yes.
with them." It's like, imagine that. I mean,
Yeah.
we're just talking about kind of like relatively minor, more career things.
Yeah.
But imagine like more consequential things, or like maybe you wanted to start a family and it could be that that time has passed. Like that would be like truly tragic.
Right. Right. That's exactly right. I mean, do the best with what you got and do
Yeah.
it with all your fucking soul.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you make the best decisions with the information you have at the time. So like part of that journey is also just looking back and like forgiving yourself. Even just for me
Yeah.
as like an entrepreneur, man, like you look back and see times where like you like squandered money that now would be like, you're like, I would kill for that to have that money back. And then you just have to be like, oh my God. I consider it like it's part of the education, like some people
Yeah.
blow 100 grand on some bullshit degree from a bullshit university. And
Yes.
I've lost lots of money in this entrepreneurial endeavor, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But you got to just forgive yourself and and move on, but can be difficult. And that's the side that people don't talk about of the entrepreneur. Like, obviously you need to have skills and competency and be able to do all this, but they don't talk about like the mental space of like, wow, I just, made the wrong decision, or I could have made a different decision. And, it's the whole mental, emotional dichotomy that's involved in being an entrepreneur can be
Yes.
intense as well.
More to look forward to.
Oh, you'll do great. No, you'll do great. Really, you're gonna do great. I wouldn't even worry about it. Seriously, just keep at it.
Bye.
All
I
right.
mean,
Well, that's like over an hour. So I think if you want to call it good, we can call it. Definitely we're gonna have you on again at some point. But that was some good stuff.
when I'm a multi-millionaire
Yeah, for sure.
hat mogul, I'll be
Hat
back.
moguls. Yeah, you're gonna be making beaver hats.
I
Gonna be
am.
making 18th century French fur trap.
Okay, well, I can't wait to be back on when you're like the next Joe Rogan and they're like, Joe Rogan who? Have you heard of Levi Henson?
Yeah. 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 Right. Well, it'll be cool. I mean, the nice thing is we can do it again whenever, and it'll be like, people have context and fill in like, oh yeah, well, this went this way, and oh, I got a job. Oh. Or it's like 2 years later, still on the hunt, still looking.
Don't say that.
1,342 resumes in, but it's good. I'm still at it. I'm resilient, sticking at it. Not going to get me down.
ChatGPT said I will do no more resumes for you. You're kicked out. I love you so much. I'm stoked that you're doing this. This is a beautiful thing.
Thanks. All right, guys. Well, that was episode 17, and hope you guys enjoyed it. So I'll see you on the next one.